Hey, everybody. Welcome to Engaging with Patients to Expand Data for Cancer Research. I have no relevant financial conflicts. My name is Liz Salmi, and I'm a co-investigator on the Open Notes project at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. But today I'm not talking about that. I'm actually talking about an upcoming role I have as a collaborator and stakeholder engagement specialist on a project that's studying the evolution of genetics around low-grade glioma brain tumors. And I have two questions for you today. One, would people with greater access to their own health information be more likely to participate in cancer research? And the second question is, how might we make it easier for people to see, access, and use their own health information? I am a cancer patient. I've had a front row seat to the changing nature of patient access to their own health information over the last 10 to 15 years. And I present today from that patient perspective. In 2005, at age 25, I stopped being the drummer in a punk rock band and started the world of real work as a person working in digital communications. That same year, I got my first health insurance plan. And that was around the same time electronic health records became a big thing and patient portals became part of that thing. And I loved the patient portal. I was able to log into this portal, make an appointment with my doctor, and order prescription refills. It was awesome. 3 years later, in 2008, 1 week before my 29th birthday, I suffered a massive seizure. I landed in the ED and a scan showed I had a mass in my brain. And then after a 9-hour surgery, I learned I have a grade 2 astrocytoma, which is a slow-growing but malignant brain tumor. 6 months later, this tumor grew back and it sent me into this whirlwind of treatments over the next 2 years, including a second brain surgery, continued struggles with seizures, and 24 months of chemotherapy. There is no right way to respond to a cancer diagnosis, but my way was to respond with curiosity. And throughout treatment and beyond, I continued to fall in love in these online patient portals. After every appointment or test, I would faithfully log into this portal and stare at these metrics and graphs that were depicting various details about what was going on in my body. And if there was a question I had about the words and phrases in these portals, I would just go online and look it up. But if I couldn't understand what I was looking for online, I would use the same portal to send my doctor an email and ask a question. Because what meaningful use is this information without interpretation? After treatment ended, I became really fascinated in enrolling in cancer studies. I felt like, well, whatever information that's been collected about me, if it can help somebody else, I will participate. And a few years later, in 2016, I learned about this amazing study called the International Low-Grade Glioma Registry, run by Dr. Elizabeth Klaus at Yale and the Brigham Women's Hospital in Boston. And essentially what Dr. Klaus was doing was studying people like me to discover things that actually matter to me. I was stoked. I was like, even though this study was going on across the country, I was committed to participating. And the things that Dr. Klaus needed from me were things like my pathology reports and biomarker reports in order to enroll in the study. And I knew as a staple patient portal user that I could probably log in and look for this information. But unfortunately, this information was actually not in my patient portal. It actually made it really hard for me to participate. And so the process of accessing and asking for my own health information became really complicated. Essentially, it involved making a ton of phone calls, people trying to send me faxes, which I don't have a fax machine, receiving letters in the mail, getting the wrong information sent to me, and eventually getting these secure encrypted emails and having to create usernames and passwords to open up PDF files. It was wild. It actually took me 5 weeks to track down the information I needed to send information to a researcher. And after I finally got enrolled, I never heard back from the study ever again, which was a major letdown. Fast forward to a year later, my amazing husband, Brett, was offered a great new job. And unfortunately, it meant we had to change health insurance plans, and I had to pick a whole new team of doctors to handle my care. We were scared and nervous, but I felt confident I could track down my medical records to transfer them to my new care team. But in this process, I ended up getting a DVD that was my medical record, and there were 4,839 pages in this PDF file that was my record. And some of the pages, some of the information in this PDF I'd seen before, such as those emails with my doctor and lab results. But the vast majority of what I found in this PDF was stuff I had never seen before in the patient portal, such as things like progress notes and reports from radiology, surgery, and pathology reports. Essentially, the information I needed to send to researchers. It was all there, I just couldn't see it. This made me ask the question that I proposed to you earlier on. Would people with greater access to their own health information be more likely to participate in cancer research? Let me remind you of a few things that have changed over the last 10 to 15 years. In 2006, the internet hit 1 billion users worldwide. And then in 2007, Apple introduced this iPhone, which quickly became the world's easiest way to get to the web. Why did this matter? Well, 1 year later in 2008, I became a patient. My whole healthcare experience has been colored and shaped by this new culture of easy access to information. And over the following years, whether it's Google search or any social media platform, health information seeking became one of the most popular online activities across all age groups. And in 2019, Google revealed that there are about 70,000 health-related searches happening every minute. If people have questions about their health, they actually don't turn first to their doctors. We turn to the internet to start asking questions. In fact, there are new ways for us people to see ourselves through the data we produce, whether it's wearables we're using to track our movement, or new apps to connect our actual medical records and merge them into one place so we can continue to monitor our care. Things have changed in patienthood. The next question I had was, how might we just make it easier for people, patients, to see and access our own health information? And I have 3 tips or pieces of advice for cancer researchers around the world. And the first one is to support policies that improve access to health information. Actually, a piece of legislation passed in the US 4 years ago, it was called the 21st Century Cures Act, that mandated that patients have immediate access to their health information. And this rule went into effect in April of this year in 2021. The act empowers Americans with their health data delivered conveniently to our computers and cell phones and mobile applications. It's a big deal, and it's a major culture change to physicians. You can learn more about this actually if you hold up your phone to this QR code. You'll have direct access to this open access article in the BMJ where we outline this policy. So tip number 1 was to support those policies so people like me can get the information and send it to you quickly. Idea number 2 is to involve patients in the design and review of research. In fact, major funders of research are now requiring researchers to partner with patients in developing the research questions, the research protocol process, the recruitment process, and actually the dissemination efforts of what was found. And some more forward-thinking medical journals, such as the BMJ, are now requiring researchers to say how they involve patients in the design and conduct of their studies. And then tip number 3, actually, here's a great example of researchers involving patients in the design of study recruitment. Researchers who designed with patients actually far exceeded their recruitment goal, whereas those for the same study who designed an outreach plan not involving patients never met their goal. Tip number 3 is to keep patients engaged throughout the project. And I have a great example for you here from like the for-profit world, and that's 23andMe. I've been a long time 23andMe participant, and they regularly send me emails asking me to answer really simple questions. Here's an example. Do you like country western music? I have a preference that I don't like it, so I answered that question. But once they got me on their website, they started asking more relevant medical questions. And as I answered these questions, they started adding more to their database. One of the interesting parts for me as a participant in 23andMe is they share back with me what they found, the findings of their study, and they give me access to the publications they produce as a result of me being a participant. You don't have to be a for-profit actor to engage patients in this way. 2 examples here from the NIH All of Us research program, as well as Count Me In, that continues to engage patients by asking questions, keeping us in the loop, and then giving us access to the information as they learn. So what's the future here? The future of engaging patients to expand data for cancer research is partnering with patients. So earlier, I talked about the International Low-Grade Glioma Registry. I had the fortune of meeting the principal investigator, Dr. Elizabeth Klaus, at a conference a couple years ago. And I said, I'm a participant in your study. How's it going? We chatted. And I told her how hard it was for me to participate. She said, well, what would you suggest? and I outlined for her some of my ideas. And fortunately, she was open and minded enough to invite me to actually be part of the next phase of a project where we're studying the genetic evolution of low-grade glioma. Here, you can see some of the partners in this project, and the star there is where I am in the overall framework of the project. But we're starting for the first time an engagement, a patient engagement optimization unit, where we will be involving patients in the design and messaging of the study, removing barriers to entry, like I felt when I was trying hard to track down my health information, and then making participation a more meaningful experience for patients by sharing results and kind of going back and forth. And also we're gonna, and I put question marks there because the patient stakeholders and patients nationwide experiencing low-grade glioma will actually be involved in helping us prioritize what else is involved in the engagement optimization unit. So I have tips for cancer researchers who want to partner with patients. One, be open-minded. Be somebody like Elizabeth Klaus, who when she heard from a participant in her study who had an idea, she said, come join the team. Two, I mentioned the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute, or PCORI. They are mandate that researchers will partner with patients in their studies. They have a ton of great resources on their website. Go there, sign up for the mailing list, and just learn for free. You can also review existing literature about the concept of patient engagement. Just go to PubMed, search for stakeholder engagement plus your topic, and learn more. And many people ask me, how do you find more patients to work with? How do I find somebody like you? And I am not a unicorn here. There are other patient advocates who want to get involved. So I would suggest starting with existing patient groups, like in my case, National Brain Tumor Society, or your local hospital patient family advisory council, and find people there. Some of these organizations are designing researcher advocate programs that you can just plug straight into. And if there is no researcher advocate program in your specific area of cancer, help create one and help build it. Finally, talk to researchers and patients who have been through this process. When you search for those stakeholder engagement papers, check for the first authors or multiple authors on the studies and reach out to them. I'm sure they'd be happy to answer some questions. I just want to say thanks to all of the mentors, friendors, patient advocates, and boosters and funders who have helped support my work over the year. And finally, I'm curious what you guys have to think about today's presentation about engaging with patients to expand data for cancer research. Tweet at me at the Liz Army. I hope you learned a few things, and thank you.